Next, we have the name entry stage in the sign-up wizard. The name entry stage in the sign-up wizard is pretty trivial. There's just one interesting aspect here: the text input. Notice that the text input looks different in Android when we enter text, and on iOS it looks completely different. This is part of the magic behind the text component class. On Android, we animate hint labels in the style of material design, and in iOS we show a grouped pair. Let's go right into the create name method. Text component is a text input component that combines the label and text field into one component and automatically adapts it to the platform. Text mode layout is a layout manager designed for text component. It uses table layout on Android and box layout on iOS. This will act like adding to a table layout when running on Android, thus placing the components side by side. On iOS, it would ignore the percentage value and stack the components vertically using a box layout on the y-axis. The text mode layout isn't really a layout as much as it is a delegate. When running in the Android mode, which we refer to as the on-top mode, the layout is almost an exact synonym of table layout, and in fact delegates to an underlying table layout. In fact, there is a public final table layout instance within the layout that you can refer to directly. There is one small difference between the text mode layout and the underlying table layout, and that's our choice to default to align entries to top with this mode. It's important for error handling, which I didn't use here. When working in the non-Android environment, we use a box layout on the y-axis as the basis. There is one thing we do here that's different from a default box layout, and that's grouping. Grouping allows the labels to align by setting them to the same width. Internally, it just invokes component.setSameWidth. Since text components hide the labels, there is a special group method there that can be used. However, this is implicit with the text mode layout, which is pretty cool. This listens to the Done button in the virtual keyboard and automatically treats it as a click on the next button. For this form, I need to add one change to the CSS. This is the text that appears on top of the Android field when we have input there. It's a really small label that uses regular font for visibility instead of light. With that, we finished the name form and it should just work. Birthday is the form I'm currently least happy with. We are in the process of rewriting the picker component, which would hopefully allow a much better looking UI for this form. For now, I compromise on this. When the UI is clicked on the device, you will see a nice looking date picker UI though. The flip side is that the code is super simple. We set the picker type to date. 20 years ago is a good place to start for an age picker by default, so that's what I did. That's trivial and includes no changes to the CSS. The gender form is pretty simple. We have a couple of UI IDs for the gender toggle and icons. Before we can go into it, I created a small helper method to make the two gender buttons. Toggle buttons in codename 1 can be radio buttons. That means that we can pick only one of them. When we click on female, the male entry is deselected. We create the font icon based on a separate UI ID because we want it to be much bigger than the text on the button. So we can't use set material icon. Here we create the radio button and set the text positioning. A radio button belongs to a group and only one member of the group can be selected. That's mostly simple boilerplate code. The form code is even simpler. We use button group to tie two or more radio buttons together. Only one of the radio buttons in a group can be selected. Grid layout gives both buttons the exact same size. The last piece for this form is the CSS for the UI IDs we defined. The gender icon uses the same icon settings as the logo with a different color. We have a special case for the selected/pressed versions of the UI ID to make the icon white. The gender toggle UI ID uses a round rect border with a gray line surrounding it. Once we did all that, we can run the app and we would be halfway through the wizard.